I'm here. I don't know where here is, but here's where I am.
You don't know where here is?
No.
Well, look around. Do you see a desk?
I see a desk, but that means nothing. I've seen desks everywhere throughout my life.
Do you see a pile of fountain pens, most of which are unused? Because then you're at home.
See, we were okay until that qualifier came in, and then the answer is no. No, I don't.
Well, then you're lost.
Oh, man. Yeah, I have a thing about fountain pens later we can work in, but let's not start there, because I feel like people are going to think this is, in fact, the fountain pen show if we do this too often.
Yeah, well, that's okay, because I have a bone to pick with you regarding fountain pens, sir.
Oh, dear.
Which will also come up later.
Dear, oh, dear. I think I know what this is.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Right. Okay. So why don't we start with something from you? Because apparently something from me is just going to get me in trouble.
Actually, before we go anywhere else, I think the most important thing is that we have to ask the obligatory, how's your dad doing?
Oh, he is doing considerably better, sir. It's all up from here. The suggestion is that at some point within the next week or maybe week and a half, he could come home.
Wow, that's good.
Yes. That's good. He will be sufficiently mobile by then to avoid falling down most of the time.
Excellent. Avoid falling down any more than is normal?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
was it him or you who ended up taking the ceiling to the head when you were hanging the ceiling? Or am I remembering something completely wrong?
I think you're remembering something completely wrong. Because I have never hung a ceiling, and neither has he.
One of you didn't get clocked in the head recently?
Oh, maybe not the ceiling, but one of the fascia boards for the house, for the patio outside.
Okay, fair enough.
That might have been it. That might have been it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it didn't affect him any. It hit him in the head, so he's fine. You know, it doesn't matter. But no, he's doing really well. His incision is practically completely healed by this point.
Wow.
Yeah, that is because they do these. I don't know how to describe exactly what it is, but it's like a vacuum seal over the incision. They pull the incision together, right? And then they kind of seal it with this foam stuff, and then put some fairly heavy duty tape over the foam, and then puncture a hole in that tape, attach a fitting like a suction cup almost to it, and then that gets attached to a little machine that maintains a constant vacuum within that wound area. And supposedly that makes everything heal better and faster. And so he's almost completely healed in that incision at this point, or at least it's completely closed up almost, something like that. Oh. I don't know exactly how it all works.
It's fascinating now the way they do it, though.
It'd be even more fascinating if they could remember things like giving him all his prescriptions when he's supposed to have them. I'm just saying, we got a call we got a call the other night, which was unusual, from my father, asking us to call the front desk to have them send a nurse down to his room, because apparently the evening shift nurse was not being attentive to what was going on.
Aww.
And he had been pounding on the nurse call button for about half an hour so he could go to the bathroom.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Eventually she showed up, I assume, and then about 20 minutes later we got another call from him, and he demanded to come home, because she then turned around and left him sitting in the bathroom for fully 10 minutes of him shouting for her and her not answering. So we basically ended up making an emergency run down to the facility he is at.
Mm-hmm.
And making our angry approach.
Mm-hmm.
to get him situated. And by then she had finally decided to return to him and see what was going on. But then she just sort of flopped him in bed. And of course he's got that bed sore and he has to be situated in a certain way.
Right.
Which she did not bother to do. So all in all, we were not very happy with what was going on. But having brought it to the head nurse's attention, the appropriate people were then yelled at, re-instructed, and a small change made in their assignments.
Oh, good.
And that was, I guess, that would have been Wednesday night, I suppose. And yesterday morning, being Thursday morning, he was in a much better mood. And things continue apace. He's doing great on his physical therapy stuff, too.
Good for him.
Yeah, a couple of days ago, he did 450 feet, something like that. More or less under his own power, with the walker, but under his own power. And so he's coming right along, and that's why we think maybe a week and a half.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the sooner he gets out of there, the better anyway.
I think so, yes. Because I'll tell you...
He'll feel better at home anyway.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. Mom and I are just about at the end of our energy for all of this.
Yeah.
We are worn out, exhausted mostly from a combination of stress and worry and running back and forth and taking care of things and all that kind of junk. We're ready for him to come home so that maybe some of us can relax a little bit.
All three, you just need a vacation when all of this is over.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. But yeah, we're getting there. What is it? This is the 1st of June, right?
Yes, it is.
2 more days will make 1 month of this.
Oof.
Yeah. That seems like a lot.
Yeah.
But also it seems like he's done it quicker than most people do. So we'll see.
Here's hoping. Here's hoping he's home very soon.
I hope so. We'd all like a nap. Anyway, so what's up with you? What's going on over there?
I guess I could start by talking about my physical therapy.
Yeah, you still have 2 legs, right?
I still have 2 legs.
Excellent.
One of them still has extreme pain in my sciatic nerve path.
Oh, that's lovely and fun.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I have been getting extremely frustrated because I am not the sort of person who can just sit around and not leave the apartment.
Right.
And with the inability to walk more than about 2 blocks without excruciating pain, I've kind of been trapped at home. So the other day when I went in to see my physical therapist, Amanda, I've been doing pretty well. The pain is diminished and I have a great range of movement for everything except actually putting weight on it. So I have improved in the most useless ways possible because I can't still actually use my legs. So I looked at her and I said, what about a bike ride? And she looked over at the exercise bikes, thinking that I was suggesting that, instead of doing my exercise, we go play on the bikes or something. And she got a very confused look. I said, and she cocks her head. And I said, no, I don't mean that. I mean, it's low impact. I don't have to put weight on it. Can I try to unchain my bike and take it out and take a bike ride? Maybe I can tolerate that better than walking, and at least I'll be able to do something active. So, she's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And she says, well, let's go over to the exercise bikes. What? Because now I guess she's okay with the bike. But she wanted to test me out on it. So I rode the bike for about 10 minutes with absolutely no pain. Wore myself out because I haven't been on a bike in at least 12 months now. So, but it worked out well. So she gave me permission to try myself on a bike ride and see how it goes. Just stay close to the apartment. Yeah. So, At the same time, my primary doctor offered me some medication to reduce the pain so that I could be a little bit more active. And so yesterday I took that for the first time, and it knocked me unconscious, basically.
Oh, lovely. Now this was your actual doctor, not Nurse Eric?
Yeah. No, this was Nurse Eric. Nurse Eric is my doctor.
Okay.
So Nurse Eric gave me, it's called a nerve blocker. It's generally an anti-epileptic medication, but it basically just suppresses your whole nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been having a lot of trouble sleeping because I can't stay in one position for more than an hour before the pain wakes me up. So then I got to adjust. So he gave it to me ostensibly to help me sleep, but he said I could also try it during the day and warned me not to be operating any heavy machinery when I...
Yeah, don't go back to your truck driving job.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is a shame because I was looking forward to getting the forklift out, but whatever. So yesterday, as you know, because I was trying to finish up some work for you, I fell asleep twice in front of the computer on this medication, which is unusual because normally I can't even fall asleep in bed. So that killed the whole bicycle thing. So today I decided I'm going to go out this morning and check on my bike. And after we record this, I'm going to go out and give myself a bike ride. I have a flat tire. I don't know how it happened. My bike has been just chained up in the back.
Right.
And it didn't just lose its air because the tire is just dead flat. And my other tire is fairly full and so are Tiny's. So I don't know. So I got to walk that up to the bike shop and get the inner tube replaced. So, but anyway, so hopefully when all is said and done, sometime this weekend, I will actually have taken a bike ride and I will feel much better.
Good.
And then in the meanwhile, I had a little bit of a sad incident last night.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. This comes out next Thursday, right? The 7th?
Yes.
Yeah, so at that point, we will be under 2 weeks before the launch of my Kickstarter.
Right.
So back in January, I started a game online with a couple of friends just to have a personal D&D game to run for fun, right? And because I knew that I would be running a Kickstarter sometime in June, and then sometime in July I would be moving from Chicago to Wisconsin, I had originally set a time frame of 6 months on the campaign and said, hey, well, we'll run the game for 6 months or whatever. And we'll wrap it up. And I figured I would just fit the story into the 6 month time frame.
Sure.
That never works, first of all.
No.
You never, ever, ever fit the story into a time frame.
No.
I have tried it many times in the past. I've promised all sorts of different things. Everything from, this is just a short campaign for 3 months to, look, we should be wrapping this up in 2 years.
Right.
And never once have I managed to hit that target. So I'm not surprised. But we're now hitting a point where, with everything going on, I don't have time to run a game. It was supposed to be over by now for a reason. Because I'm also discovering that even just preparing to run a Kickstarter, if you want to do it right, is a full-time job. And I can't even explain what I'm doing with my time because I'm not entirely sure. I'm pushing, and it's not writing the book. I mean, if I should say finishing the book. Okay, right. It's not finishing the book. That seems to be the least important part of this process. So,
I'm just going to sit here and laugh at you.
Right? That's fine. So, one thing, I have a full budget all worked out and, different costs and what happens at different funding levels and how to price the stretch goals and everything, right? It took a couple of days to come up with all that and get all the information. Sure. And thank God, by the way, for Jim McClure over at Third Act Publishing, because he's ushering me through the process. Not for free. I hired him to do this.
Right.
But still, I'm glad for him. Because half the stuff I'm doing, I wouldn't even think of. But he informed me yesterday that we have to redo all of our budgets. Oh. Because Kickstarter has changed the way they collect shipping and handling. So when people pay shipping, it used to be one way where it was just added onto the pledges. And then it was another way where it was separate from the pledges. So it didn't, like, you know, if you funded at $5,000, the shipping costs weren't included in that.
Mm-hmm.
And now it went back to the old way where the shipping costs are included in the pledges. So when you fund it, say $5,000, you know, 300 of that is the money that people paid for shipping, which means that you don't actually have $5,000 because part of that is earmarked for a specific cost.
That's handy.
So you're now unless I redo all our numbers, the Kickstarter is going to underfund.
Nice.
So it can successfully underfund.
Well, it's good. It's good that you enjoy these sorts of things as a pastime hobby.
Yeah, right? That's what it is. It's a hobby. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but with all of that going on, I went to my gang last night, and I said, look, here's the reality. You know, next week I'm going to be out because we're going up to Wisconsin. We have a couple of leads on apartments that we are checking out. And then, you know, the following week I'm actually going to be talking on a podcast, another podcast about the book, because they want to interview me, and that's. And then, you know, Kickstarter is going to be running. I'm going to be moving, you know, because it actually takes a while to move if you try to do it right. Especially because, like, the other complication we've run into is the apartment that we're in. I mean, you saw it when you came out to Chicago,
right?
When we went to Gen Con. And
I have visited your closet. Yes.
Yes. And apart from being small, it's a little bit old and run down. But as I've mentioned, the building changed owners between when I rented it and now. So I don't know what the new owner of the building knows about the state of this apartment before we moved in. So we're in this sort of weird position of trying to restore the apartment a little bit before we move out. Like, for example, one issue that's very interesting is that one or more of the previous owners hung things off of every wall with nails, screws, hooks, and anything else they had available that could be pounded into a wall. So there were just hooks and nails and stuff in all of the walls everywhere. And they've been there for a while because they've been painted over. And I tried to get a few out when I first moved in here, and they're just not going anywhere. But now, because I don't know what we're going to be held responsible for, I'm like trying to fight them all out. I pulled 12 nails out of my living room wall. And that's
seems like a lot.
Right? I would love to know what they hung here. Like, did they have a cargo net that they just decorated one wall with? So yeah, there's all that going on. So I actually had to put my game on hold for 6 weeks. So look, after I move, and it'll be a lot easier after I've moved and everything is settled down and I'm not publishing a book and all of that stuff. Because the one thing is, by the time the Kickstarter is done, the book will be finished and it will be in the hands of a hapless editor. And the artist will be chugging away on the remainder of the art. Because he's got about the requirements for half the art already. Oh, cool. And he's already working on it. And so my part in the Kickstarter will be over the day the Kickstarter ends. So that's it. Everybody else now, come in and make a book out of it. My job at that point will be sending manuscripts to people and signing checks. Oh. So here you go, hapless editor.
Such a slacker.
Here you go, layout guy.
We've determined that is the official name, by the way, layout guy.
I know. No I even asked Jim, and I just call him the guy who does layouts. Yeah. I have heard a few people say layout artist.
Right.
That sounds a little bit pretentious, though.
It does. It does. Can I be an editing artist? Is that a thing?
Sure.
Might as well, right?
You can be lead editor extraordinaire.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to totally do that.
Now you realize now I have to list you on the credits page like that.
I want to give you a hint for this next department you go into, because it's too late to help you with this apartment.
Yeah, I know.
Take pictures of everything before you put a stick of furniture in there. We ended up having to do that with the apartment that burned down. But it didn't matter.
Yeah, no, the fire was like that when we moved in.
Exactly.
That pile of ashes was there.
That's right. No, we've only ever had half a living room. But yeah, take some pictures, save yourself some hassle.
Yeah, honestly, this is my first renting experience where I wasn't renting from family or friends. So you learn a few things.
Yes.
Also, you learn, don't even wait like a month to get renter's insurance. Get it immediately. That's like priority one. Because you can be robbed within the first 3 weeks of moving into a place.
That's right.
As it happens.
Some lessons are harder to learn than others. But you don't even miss that stuff now, so that's okay. But somehow, in all this process, I've gotten in trouble, you say.
Yeah. You and your pen addiction, sir.
Oh, dear.
And your notebook addiction, or whatever it is that you're talking about these days on the Twitter box.
Oh, the Twitter box, yes.
Yeah, my girlfriend follows you.
Yeah, I've
and
noticed
she
that.
is now taking purchase advice from you.
Oh, she is?
Yeah, until I stop her.
That seems like a bad idea.
Stopping her or taking advice from you?
Possibly both. I certainly wouldn't take purchase advice from me.
I mean, all it was today was a box of like a dozen Pilot cheapo disposable fountain pens.
Yeah, disposable fountain pens.
Just like I have to buy these.
They're like $3 a pop.
Yes, but it's a $40 box of disposable pens.
Well, you can buy them in singles as well. I mean, gee whiz.
That's not what she's going to do.
Well, that's hardly my fault.
I know, but I can't blame her. With my back and knee the way it is, I can't sleep on the couch right now.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Fair enough.
So I have to yell at you.
All right. Well, I don't know. This all may be coming to a head anyway.
Has your pen addiction actually gotten into... Did someone have an intervention?
No. Is
that what it is? Oh, okay.
No. See, okay, so I'm gonna start by asking a question that has nothing to do with pens.
Okay.
All right. If there was one thing in all the world of RPGs, one item that you absolutely wanted but have never been able to get a hold of, what would that be?
The answer, well, okay. I want the original Planescape box set, complete.
The original complete Planescape box set. Okay, fair enough.
Wait, no, I got one even better.
Oh, all right.
Sorry. And I realize that's a cheat because I used to own it. And it's one of those things that did not survive. Okay. But, all right, here's a better one. Do you remember Dragon Strike?
Oh, vaguely.
The instructional D&D board game that came with the VHS video. Right. That starred the guy from American Gladiators.
Yeah, I remember. Okay. and it was all sort of, let's say a lot of it was phoned in.
I don't agree. I think that absolutely every person involved in that production was giving it their all.
Okay.
I think that's what the problem was.
Yeah, Dragon Strike. Okay, there's like an evil wizard that these adventure peoples have to go off and defeat or something, and
the video was
castle.
Yeah, and it had a video, and the video starts off with the old the guy's disembodied head, and he is the dungeon master.
Oh yeah, he's in a dark turtleneck, isn't he?
Yeah, and that's it. They did it with the old filming him in a dark room, and he's in a turtleneck, so that he's just a floating head. and he's like, and it starts off with basically explaining the concept of a role-playing game. It's the first chapter of every role-playing game book done through the expedient of a floating head who is really into his role as Dragon Master.
Right.
So I think he was the Dragon Master. And then he starts introducing the players to the game. And then it switches to the players in the game, and they are moving through a cardboard landscape.
Yes. Yeah. There's no foam rocks here. It is a cardboard landscape.
Oh my God. And the special effects are fantastic.
Yeah.
They're absolutely fantastic. And the whole rest of the thing is just the depiction of their adventures. And every time they take an action, you hear the clatter of dice. Mm-hmm. And every so often, like, they'll switch to the board. Like, when one of the heroes kills a monster, they switch to the board game and the DM is like tipping over the monster's miniature.
Right.
Okay. It was hammy and, like, so bad it's good. Mm-hmm. Delightful to watch. But the actual board game in there was really good. It was a very good introduction to D&D. It was very well put together.
Okay.
And it had 4 different boards and numerous scenarios. So you got a lot of playtime out of it before you switched to D&D. Mm-hmm. Reading the description on Wikipedia, the video primarily used live actors, but was bolstered by then cutting-edge 3D graphics.
Yeah. They did not get their C's anywhere near their G's or their I's.
No.
It's amazing.
Yeah. No. Anyway, my dream is to have a copy of that.
Okay.
Again, complete, except that I don't really care so much about the VHS tape because I could just burn the video to DVD. It's everywhere.
Right.
And if you have a chance, watch the video on YouTube. In fact, I'm going to find it right now so that you can put it in the show notes.
There will be a link in the show notes.
Oh my God.
Because that's how we do things.
Ooh, here's the high def version.
Ooh, that's unnecessary.
You got to see it in all the cutting edge glory, you know. Yeah,
until you can count the corrugations in the cardboard.
Well, I just sent the link to my Discord instead of to you.
Nice, they'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we would call that, right, is your Grail game. That's the game at which you get that and you think, okay, I've accomplished all I'm going to accomplish, right? I've got
that's
the
my
best
holy
of the
grail.
best, right? Exactly.
Well, no, I'm not ready to die if I get a copy of that. I still have other things I want to accomplish in my life. Okay?
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of gaming, that's like the pinnacle. That's the best thing you could ever get.
Yes.
Okay. Well, here's the problem, sir. Mm-hmm. I when I started this whole pen thing, I had a Grail pen.
Okay.
Okay. I had one I specifically wanted to get, and I technically already had one, but it didn't work right. Okay. So I needed a different one that actually did work. And those were hard to come by because the pen is from 1942 or thereabouts. And it has a vacuum fill in it, and seals tend to go bad really rapidly in those.
Okay.
Okay. So then the vacuum fill doesn't work, and then the pen doesn't work because it doesn't fill with ink and you can't write with it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So I needed to get a new one or a different one that was almost as new. And so I did a lot of playing around and tracking things on eBay and keeping an eye on how much they went for and that kind of stuff. And then a lot of the pen buying I've done has been just for comparative purposes. Like, is this a fine nib? Do I like fine nibs? Do I like medium nibs? Do I like broad nibs? Do I like, all this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
All right, I've had a fun little tour of the lower end of the pen, fountain pen world and made some decisions about what I like and what I don't like so that when I did find this pen, I would know which one to get and to focus on and which one would be right for me.
Okay. Sounds reasonable.
Last week, my Grail pen showed up.
Oh.
Yep. I jumped on a buy it now on eBay that brought the pen in for about half the price of every other auction I've ever seen for it.
Wow.
And it works perfectly and is lovely and beautiful and fun to write with, and I enjoy it. And now what do I do?
Well, now you need a new addiction.
Oh, okay. I mean, I like the fountain pen thing. It's kind of fun. I've enjoyed playing around in it and finding things and getting information and that kind of stuff. And I don't really want to give it up entirely. Mm-hmm. But I've got my Grail pen, And I don't have a new Grail pen. There's nothing else that seems to be entirely as interesting as that was to me.
Well, sir, I think now, actually, what the next step is to take your Grail pen and to take the favorite notebook that you've discovered and write the great American novel.
Oh, okay.
I think that's where you go from there.
Put it all to use, huh?
Yep, exactly.
Oh.
Well, I mean, but like I said, though, knowing you, something else is going to come along. You went from Dragon Warrior to pens. And, in short order, there will be something else that you will be totally addicted to. And I just hope it's not something that Tiny likes.
Oh. Okay.
She's too easily influenced by you.
Well, I am pretty cool. Okay, all right.
But no, congratulations.
I mean, I it's okay to just stop, right? I've achieved what I wanted to achieve.
Sir, I was desperately begging you to stop 3 weeks ago. Yes, it is fine. You can stop. In fact, I think the problem was not that you can stop. It's that you couldn't stop.
Well, I do tend to run in obsessions. I mean, I know lots about fountain pens now. I'm not sad that I know all that. I'm by no means, expert level.
No, but
I have enough to operate with. So anyway, yeah, that's where the fountain pen thing is at. I have my Grail pen.
And it's knowledge you can use.
It is knowledge I can use, yes. The more you know. And knowing is half the battle. Anyway, yes, the Grail pen has been acquired, and I might be at an end of the whole fountain pen thing.
Can I ask what the Grail pen actually is?
Yes, you can.
What is it named, or?
It was manufactured by Schaefer Pens in the 1940s, or starting in the 1940s, up through about the 80s.
Okay.
Okay. It's a Schaefer 1250. It's a vacuum fill. It's got kind of a neat striated colored body on it. It's what they call a cigar shaped pen. Okay. So picture a cigar in your head, and that's the shape of the pen overall. But it has a nib on it called the Triumph nib. And to my knowledge, Schaefer is the only company that ever made a nib like this. Most fountain pen nibs are more or less two-dimensional, right? They have a length, they have a width, and that's about it. Okay?
Right.
This is three-dimensional. Because what they've done is they have made a nib that wraps around the end of the pen.
Right.
Okay? So if you type in Triumph nib, you'll see these things.
I'm actually looking at the Schaefer Triumph vacuum filling pen instructions from 1943, and I can see from the picture exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Most nibs don't do that. They don't have a full wrap nib, which is what this is. They also don't have the other neat thing that this Schaefer has, which is the very point of the nib in a pen that somebody hasn't mistakenly corrected. The pointed end of the nib goes up just a bit off the end of the feed. Most pens don't do that. They tend to stay either level with the feed, or they tend to go down just a little bit.
Okay. What does that do for the pen?
Okay, well, what that does for the pen is it gives that nib, the very point of the nib, extra strength.
Oh.
Which, if you drop a pen accidentally, 9 times out of 10, it will land on the point of the nib.
Sure.
Okay?
For the same reason that toast lands jelly side down and cats land on their feet. Never mind.
Right. Anyway.
That didn't go where I thought it would go.
No, never does.
Sometimes it does.
So what happens is it hits on that point on that nib, and then it mangles the nib. Okay? Which also means that point tends to be the weakest point of the pen. So when you're writing with it, if you push too hard or whatever, that point takes the most pressure, basically. By angling the nib up on the Schaefer pen, you do two things. One, you impart extra strength to the nib, And 2, you make it possible to use this pen with enough pressure to write through copy paper.
Oh.
Which at the time was something you'd want to do because copy paper was everywhere. And even now, like, you get those triplicate forms that just reproduce themselves all the way through without the benefit of copy paper.
Mm-hmm. The carbons.
Yeah, the carbon stuff, whatever. This, carbon paper, not copy paper. But anyway, this will write on those with sufficient pressure to transmit the image all the way through to the bottom copy. Whereas other fountain pens will tend, even modern ones, will tend to bend or fold the nib if you apply too much pressure to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really cool pen with a lot of neat engineering in it. And so I really, I saw dads. I liked writing with dads for the few moments I was able to ink it and write with it.
Right.
Because you basically, you can use it as a dip pen just to get ink in the nib and then try it out a couple of times. I really liked writing with it before. And I thought, well, I need to get one of those because I really enjoy that. And that's really neat. So now I have one.
Oh, I'm very happy for you.
And as a bonus, the deal was so good that I actually even got a Schaefer mechanical pencil from the same set to go with it. So now I have another mechanical pencil too.
I'm a fan of the mechanical pencils.
I like them. They're very useful.
I'm not a pen person.
Mm-mm.
Give me a pencil over a pen any day.
Yeah,
but
it depends on what I'm doing. I mean, another nice thing about this particular Schaefer is that it's a fine nib, which means that as a fine nib, you can write on a variety of different paper qualities, and it won't bleed through nearly as much. Whereas if you take a broad or a medium nib on like notebook paper, just standard notebook paper, you'll probably pretty likely bleed through and smear ink all over the place and all that kind of stuff. Because it's water-based ink. So it wants to flow, but because the fine nib puts down less ink than the broad or medium, it works out. You see, it's beautiful. It's brilliant stuff. Look what I learned. I have titled this entry, "They Call Me Mr. Casey," because I want to point out something. I'm not upset about it. I just want to make sure that we have an understanding between us here. My name is Brian. I enjoy hearing it. It's lovely to me. People who know me or are my friends or at least friendly towards me call me Brian. They please do not call me Casey.
Oh, okay.
I have received 1 or 2 comments and emails where it's just Casey. That was high school. Thanks. Because nobody in high school cared. There's no good associations with high school. I'm sorry. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Best time of your life, right?
Sure, if I died immediately afterwards.
Well,
no.
It might just be confusion because Casey is a common first name also.
I know.
So if you're not listening carefully and you hear Brian Casey, it's is he doing last name first, or I didn't hear Brian.
Yeah. and that's why I'm not too upset about it, because I understand how it happens. But for future reference, Brian is fine. I don't need Casey. And I'm not even going to go with my dad is Mr. Casey, because that's I can't say that word. We've promised not to swear. That's a non-functional response. Let's put it that way.
It is neither polite nor informative.
No. And it tends to be said by people who want you to be friendly and relaxed around them because they know that you're not going to be no matter what they say.
Right.
You have too much authority. And that is not me. You can just call me Brian. That's fine. Thank you. Carry on. You got an email, it says.
I did get an email.
Okay.
From John Henry, which I can only assume is the John Henry. Or
is he a steel driving man?
I assume so.
Okay, fair enough. I'm okay with that.
He will never email me again now.
Yeah.
He said, speaking of evil corporations and zombie viruses, because we were, you should totally watch iZombie. Charming, engaging, and witty. It's on par with No Ordinary Family, but it managed 5 seasons before getting canceled.
Oh.
Now, I've never even heard of this show.
Neither have I. Which I guess might have something to do with why it was canceled. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because IMDb it says there's a season 5 premiere coming out in 2019.
Really? How can it be canceled then?
Yeah, it's
already we've got bad information.
Yeah, that's it. I can't watch this now.
No, we're done.
Everything is a lie.
We're done. You've lost all credibility, Mr. John Henry. You're probably not even the right one.
You know what? Come to think of it, I have seen ads for this.
Have you?
And it didn't grab me. But perhaps I need to reevaluate.
Well, that seems silly. Why would you reevaluate a long-held opinion?
It seems to be the tagline: a medical resident finds that being a zombie has its perks when she uses it to which she uses to assist police.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. So she uses her zombie status to assist police. I guess she's like an informant. The undead will talk to her.
Well,
I have no idea. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to let you test that one out and then report back.
She's turned into a zombie while attending a boat party. This is just the premise. Abandons her career and breaks up with her fiance after turning into a zombie, which, to be fair, that is a big life change.
Yeah, wait. She turned into a zombie where?
At a boat party.
I'm not getting you from A to B on this. I don't. Should I not attend boat parties in the future? Is there a thing going on there I don't know about?
Well, it probably depends on the boat party.
Okay. All right.
Oh, okay. So she has to periodically eat human brains, or else she'll turn into a zombie. That's why zombies crave brains, apparently, because they don't have brains of their own. So their own brain, I guess, degenerates, and so they have to eat brains. It's sort of like the reason why vampires drink blood, because they don't have blood of their own and they need it. But she discovers that whenever she eats a dead person's brain, she temporarily inherits some of their personality traits and skills and has flashbacks of the person's life. So she gets a job as a medical examiner, as a morgue, and then clearly starts fighting crime using the memories of the victims of the crimes. Okay.
All right. I'm with you now. So what we have here is essentially the psychic investigator, except a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, it harkens back to, did you see Pushing Daisies?
No, not really, but I know the premise.
Oh, that show is a delight. It was one of those shows that was too good that it was destined to be canceled because like only a handful of people could really enjoy it. It was such a tonal roller coaster. It was such a juxtaposition of macabre and comedic. But it was done artfully. It wasn't just like smashing the two ideas together. And it was all narrated by Jim Dale, the Winnie the Pooh guy. And his like storybook grandfather narration over this delightfully charming show that was really macabre. With really excellent characters that you fell in love with. It's such a great show. It was a work of art.
Okay.
And it got 2 seasons, so not even 2. I think it was like 1.5 seasons, and then nobody could watch it because nobody knew what to make of it.
All right,
but it was fantastic. I highly recommend. If you like The Good Place, I think you'll like it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. I'm willing to check that out, but you're on your own with iZombie.
I'm gonna check out iZombie. I will report back given my television watching schedule, 6 weeks. I will have watched the first episode.
Good. As long as you've got it slotted in there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm penciling it in now.
All right. we have a kind of an interesting question going on here.
Okay.
Coming up next from Jan. You remember Jan? Yeah.
I remember Jan.
He writes in every so often.
Frequent writer.
Mm-hmm.
Frequent correspondent, Jan.
Yes.
Oh God, I'm going to start another title war.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. He has some interesting things to say in a post which he made on episode 35, which was our last episode. Notice how close we are to responding to actual comments on actual shows that we've actually done in an actually recent amount of time.
Yeah, that is a side effect, an unintended side effect of the chaos in our lives causing us to lose the lead time we had on recording this show.
That's right.
Now we can be topical. So it's win-win.
Yeah, but now we can never not record a show.
Right.
Because then we'll miss. Anyway, he talks a little bit about players and GMs and cheating and that kind of stuff and the trust issue we talked about back then. But then, sir, he goes on to say, I'm having a week off and trying to start a blog. What are your things you wish you had known beforehand? Or any other welcome tips regarding blogging? So you run more of a blog than I do right at the moment.
Yeah. Though Mad Adventurer Society was a much more ambitious thing that I ran.
Uh-huh.
Because, you were coordinating numerous people there, but I'm not sure that counts so much as a blog.
No, not really. So, I don't think. But we'll see. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit. But you start. You go ahead, because you've got the bloggy looking thing right now.
I know, but it's kind of hard for me to answer this because I know what I did was the best way that I could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't mean that to sound like Bray. Okay, let me explain.
Yes.
When I started up the blog, I had absolutely no intentions for it. I had one clever idea. That was the D&D boss fight thing that came after I had been running 4th edition for a while and played God of War 3 on the PlayStation. All those things came together, and I was in a position where I was bitter because I had been ousted from a podcast and decided to start a blog, and that's what I did. So I just wrote up what it was and threw it out there. And it was a while before I had anything else to write on. And it was a while before I found my voice and figured out what stuff that I could contribute to the community. Which turned out to be, I have a really good way of breaking things that other people think are obvious down to help people understand them. Explaining the basic thought process behind DMing. Because that's when I got popular, was when I started doing more of that stuff. Breaking down things like story structure, breaking down mechanics. I'm very deconstructive. And then I put it back together and explain how I got there. Okay? It was all accidental, and I never set out to chase an audience, and I never even sat down and said, what is my unique thing? Okay, but what I did do was when it became clear that I did have a unique thing, because everybody does. You have your unique thing to contribute. I was receptive to that and seized on it. But what I would tell someone starting out is, ask yourself what it is. What is, there are 1,000 gaming blogs out there. Or 1 million of them. I don't know how many. There's a lot of them out there. What is it that you have that is unique to you? What is it that nobody else is offering that you can? And a lot of it is just your own perspective and your voice. But you're not going to find that right away either. It's good to start with some sense of where you want to go and what specifically you want to talk about that's special to you. But you also have to be willing to kind of play around, pay attention, see what people respond to, and go to that. But you also don't want to chase that, because the real thing is you have to be genuine. See, this is the problem. I'm all over the place. Because everything I did by accident. And the reason it worked is because I wasn't trying to build a fan base or anything else. I just had an idea and wanted to share it with whoever wanted it. And then I started to have more and wanted to share that. So everything I write is genuine. I mean, like, the tone that I use is calculated. I won't deny that. I did try to find a specific voice very early on. But, and I guess that was sort of my unique, like, what's my unique thing is, okay, I'll adopt this persona. But, okay. This is a mess. Why did you throw this question at me?
Because I knew it would be a mess and it'd be fun getting you out of it.
Okay. All right. Number one, why are you doing this? That's the first thing. Don't do something if you can't explain to yourself why you're doing it. But understand that I'm just doing it for fun is a perfectly fine answer. Okay? You can say, I'm just doing this for fun, or I have good ideas, I want to share them with people. Or even, I want to build a gigantic fan base and be internet famous. That's also a valid idea. There's no wrong reason to do it. Barring like running a scam or committing fraud. But this is gaming. I don't know how you could do that. But there is no wrong reason to get into it. But you do have to know the reason, and you have to be honest with yourself about the reason. And I'll admit this. When I discovered that I was starting to become popular, my goal shifted to remaining popular because I have an ego. I like to be the center of attention. That's who I am. And there are good qualities to that and bad qualities to that. The virtuous part of having the ego is I'm charismatic. I can hold a room. I can hold people's attention. I can entertain. I can make people happy. The bad part is obviously that I have an ego and I tend to shove other people out of the spotlight and, whatever. But it's, once I understood that, I could say, okay, now I am trying to build my audience further. And then I took actions in that direction. But if you don't know why, or if you lie to yourself about why, like you don't admit, for example, your ego. You don't admit, hey, yeah, I do want to be internet famous. I want my name out there. I want people to talk about me. If you don't admit that, then you're going to go in the wrong direction. And then whatever you're doing is that once you're honest with yourself about why you're trying to do it, what it is you really want to get out of it, then you're going to be genuine. Okay. Now, some of those things, if you're too genuine about there, it's going to land you in trouble. Like if you are genuine about having a tremendous ego and wanting attention, some people are going to shy away from you. Of course, other people might find your honesty refreshing. I mean, I have turned my desire for attention into a running gag in everything I write, but it's also there. So is any of this useful?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. Help me here.
Help you here. All right.
Because I'm going to start going in circles now.
I'm gonna sum up your first piece of advice for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Here we go. You ready? It's really complicated. Yeah. Write for yourself. I would say just don't even think about when you do the actual writing, don't think about what your audience is going to be necessarily. When you set up the blog, do think about what your audience is going to be, who you want to be talking to and that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Know who you plan to have your audience as. But when you actually go to write the posts, having decided during the setup of the blog who your audience is, do not think about writing to your audience when you write your posts.
And if you have been honest with yourself about why you're doing this in the first place, writing for yourself will be writing for your audience.
Right.
Okay. Exactly. That's brilliant. This is why we keep you around.
I earned my paycheck. The other thing, see, here's why I think you're going to give slightly better blog advice than I will, because I'm not consistent, and consistency in a blog is fairly important to having kind of a coherent, connected blog that is more or less on topic that you have decided on.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can actually prove that with hard evidence, because I know where my numbers were when I was not keeping to a regular update schedule. And I know where they get to whenever I get back on the regular update schedule.
Yeah.
Consistency is the number one thing that people are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you become part of their habit. You become part of their daily routine.
Yeah.
They check your blog every Tuesday morning or whatever.
And being inconsistent can also be consistency if you are consistently inconsistent. But it's not the sort of consistency you want. Was that a complicated enough sentence to parse?
I have no idea what just came out of your mouth.
If people expect that you are inconsistent, all right, that is different than people not expecting you to be inconsistent and you turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
So if I only post a blog post whenever I feel like it about whatever topic I want, that's okay, provided people know that going in.
Right.
You won't grab a huge audience that way, which if that is your goal, then that's not the way to do it. Mm-hmm. But you will gain an audience that is interested enough in what you have to say to be there when you post something, which will be smaller, but it's a more involved audience, I think.
Right.
Okay.
You know what? That's sort of to clarify something I was struggling to say, because you just sort of put it into perspective for me. It is okay if your goal is to have a big audience. Mm-hmm. Okay. But what you can't do is fake it.
No.
Okay. You have to find a way to get your audience doing what is true to you. You can't put on a mask. If you admit to yourself outright that you're trying to build a huge audience, because there's eventually going to come a point where you have to make a choice, like, do I do this or do I do that? Do I talk about this subject or not this subject? And it might be just little things. But if your goal is just be true to yourself and write for whoever wants to read you, you'll choose one way. If you are audience focused, you'll choose a different way. And it's okay to make those choices, but you have to know what you're in it for to begin with. Mm-hmm. You know? But you still can't write something that isn't genuine to you.
Right.
Because the internet has great BS detectors. People can tell when you're fake. And I don't mean fake like putting on a persona. The Angry GM persona is not... It is partly an act, but it is a character that I can get into because it's sort of like me unleashing the person I would be if I was a worse person. You know, sort of like your dark fantasy of, man, I wish I could do this stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's still true to me. But you can't be someone who isn't you, and you can't appease people by being not you. So,
yeah. I will, for example, I will never be an unscripted, enthusiastic presenter. Okay? Seriously though, I don't do that high energy, what do I want to say? Like monster truck announcer style of broadcasting or production.
Right.
It's just, I can't do it all this kind of way all the time because I just don't have the energy to make it exciting and powerful and really pop those sentences. And I can't do it for more than about, a minute.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is even listening to you try to do it.
Yeah.
You're just, it's off.
Yeah, it's off. It's way off.
Yeah. Whereas by the same token, I can't read from a script. Mm-hmm. If you hand me a script to just perform, I fall apart. Right. I have to be extemporaneous. I have to talk my thoughts out. Otherwise, I'm fake. And
if you've ever been on YouTube, you know immediately when you hit somebody who is really forcing the enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah.
They're just annoying and grating and not pleasant to listen to in any way, shape, or form. You kind of have to know your own voice. And this applies to writing as well. You have to know your own voice in order to write well and to speak well and to, create even art, even if you're just drawing and you don't think there's a voice there. There's something about it that is you and is unique to the way you do things.
That's why I suggest the word style. Mm-hmm. Because that applies. I mean, even GMing has a style. You have a unique a style that is unique to you, a place where you are comfortable being.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing I want to throw out there, kind of getting away from the sort of the pre-thinking about everything.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to throw out there is be very, very, very careful what you commit to in your first few posts.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that's going to set the tone for the rest of your blog.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And if you make some foolish mistake, like say writing 5,000 words an article, and that's what your first few posts are like, you're going to be stuck with that unless you take a whole lot of time to explain why you all of a sudden aren't doing that.
Forever.
Mm-hmm. Don't promise anything. And this, I'm not talking like, an actual written down promise. I'm talking like the unwritten promises you make just by the way you create things and the way you write them down.
Right.
Okay. Be very careful about what you think is going to be the thing for your first blog. Like those posts I did about the yawning portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I only ever really want to do that for the yawning portal.
Right.
All right. I am not going to build the rest of my life out of super analyzing adventures for other systems or anything like that, which is why I'm happy to have let it sit for a year before making another post, which I did, by the way, turns out on the same day, unwittingly.
Huh.
A year later. Yeah. It's about transit. Big deal. Anyway, the thing is, though, that is not the reason I have a blog is not sit there and analyze every little bit of everything about an adventure or whatever. The reason I have a blog is because I want a place to put things that I am currently thinking about or writing about or whatever. That's it. That's its sole purpose. I don't even care if anybody reads it. It's nice when someone does and compliments me on it, which a few people have. Mm-hmm. But that's not my goal. My goal is this is a place where I can write things down that I want to share with people that are maybe too long to share just on Twitter. That's it.
You know what? Can I build on that then?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. This is something that drives me crazy with a lot of people who start blogs for the first time. Skip the introductory post.
Mm-hmm.
Skip the post that every blogger throws up with, "Hi, welcome to my blog. So this is what I'm going to do with my blog. Here's my plans. Here's my ideas." Go to your content.
Yep.
Okay. If you have to write that post for you, fine. Write that post and then take it and crumple it up and throw it away and then skip to the first actual piece of content. Right. People will figure out what you're about from there, and it'll keep you from making promises that you're not going to deliver on.
Right.
And the other thing is, as far as the whole idea of style and stuff, do keep in mind that evolves. It's something that you build and evolve and become aware of over time.
It had better evolve.
Well, yeah. So, but the thing is, there comes a day when you go back and you read some of the things you've written and you realize that you have developed a unique voice and a unique take on things. And then when you want to take it to the next level, that's when you can recognize that opportunity and see what your strengths really are and play to that. I don't mean, like, again, not being fake. It's like, this is what I'm good at. This is why people are coming to me. I need to do more of this. Or how could I do this better? It's always worth looking. Like, a lot of people get focused on their weaknesses and say, okay, I'm not good at this. How can I work around this or do it better or fix this weakness? Very few people look at something they're good at and say, I'm really good at this. How can I be even better? How can I make that strength work even more for me? And I think sometimes that's the more important question. Yeah.
Figure out what you do and do well and do that more.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, but certainly take some time to build the skills where you're lacking.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying ignore your weaknesses.
Right. But just don't put as much weight on the weaknesses in at least in blogging and creating things, I guess. Don't focus entirely on your weaknesses. Make sure you notice what you're doing right as well.
here's something else. This is just important to know. It takes time. You don't come out of the gate and have a whole bunch of people reading and commenting and whatever on day one. It takes a lot of time. And if your goal is anything other than, I just want to put my thoughts out here and I'm not even going to pay attention to who's reading, then it's going to take time to build a fan base. A lot of time. Okay. I just realized I have been at this Angry GM thing for 11 years. It came up 2 days ago. I was sending out an email. I think it was one of my bulk emails for an update or something. And I looked at the date and I've been doing this for 11 years. And for most of that time, nobody had ever heard of me.
Mm-mm.
Not most. About half that time. So it takes a lot of time. Depending on what your goals are, and I can't tell you what they are. But if you're setting out because you're going to build an audience and, you're dreaming that way, that's fine. You're going to be doing this for a lot of years before you build that audience. Or maybe you get lucky. Yeah. Maybe you get that one retweet from like Will Wheaton or Chris Perkins or someone, and then bam. But just you're going to have to. If you want to do anything other than have a little internet diary that whoever reads it, it takes time and effort to build it. You spend a lot of time I'm going to use this phrase on purpose now, just to annoy some people. You spend a lot of time working just for exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it is.
Yeah, nobody's going to pay you day one.
Yeah.
You're not going to become famous. I mean, it has taken me literally 8 years to get the tens of people who actually know who I am and pay attention to what I do, to pay attention to what I do.
Yeah.
Okay. And it just, and you almost, if you really want to be a super successful blogger with a lot of people coming to your blog, you already have to be a super successful blogger with a lot of people coming to your blog. It sounds redundant. It sounds weird, but you have to be well known before you're going to be well known on the internet.
Right.
And unless you start that way, it's a lot of work to get that way. Mm-hmm. And frankly, if your goal is to have hundreds and hundreds of people reading your blog every single day, you're going to spend more time working on that than you will on actually writing your blog.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes promotion and all kinds of stuff.
I'll tell you, honestly, if your goal is to achieve fame by having an RPG blog, or any type of blog, because you didn't specify RPG. If your goal is to achieve fame by having a blog, pick another goal.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that like that, but
maybe get famous first and then have a blog.
Yeah, because you can't force fame to happen anyway. It's just something that you luck into. And I feel bad saying that because, I know people look at me and they see me as successful. And I am. I'm very successful. But again, it was a lot of hard work. I had to make a lot of smart decisions, and I got hella lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I happened to do the right things at the right times and have the right unique voice that people were looking for. And, in the beginning, a few people found my stuff. I was very lucky about that too. Some of the folks at Penny Arcade retweeted some of my early stuff and wrote it up in their blog. I'm still getting traffic from that. I'm still getting traffic for a blog, for an article I wrote 8 years ago that someone from Penny Arcade liked. Had something from some giant in the playground. So, but, that's... It takes more. There was some ugly. You remember the whole what was it? The Patreon disaster back in December, where they changed this and that, and everybody was freaking out, and then everybody was in a fight.
Yes,
there was a really bit of sad ugliness that happened because one of the creative minds behind Patreon did an interview. And in the interview, he said something that was gravely misinterpreted.
Yes.
And what he said was, our platform shouldn't be used by people who, I don't remember his exact wording, but it was basically, if you're not already famous, we don't want you using our platform, is how it was taken. That was the out of context bit. Right. That was the out of context part. That's what people looked at it. They thought this is what Patreon was saying. What he was really trying to say is that people have this concept that you start doing something and you throw up the Patreon and the money will follow. And really what happens is the people who are most successful on Patreon are the people who spend a long time doing something first. And then when they have the fan base, the community, the establishment, whatever it is, then they say, okay, I'm now going to be supported on Patreon, and their fans come with them. Mm-hmm. He wasn't saying that they don't want people who aren't already famous or, who aren't big number people. What he was saying is that there's a misapprehension. Misapprehension?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. There's the mistaken belief that the way to do this is I'm going to start a Patreon to fund what I want to do. And it's, no, you do what you want to do for a long time first. And then one day people will be willing to pay you for it. And that's the same sort of argument you see online where people get offended because people are not clamoring to pay them for their art because they haven't done anything with it yet. It's like, I'm sorry, that's how the world works.
Yeah, essentially it boiled down to you don't get famous for being on Patreon.
Right. And I'm not making a point about like taking your blog on Patreon or anything.
Yeah.
The broader point is just, it is a lot of work to establish a fan base, to have readers. And when you start out, you're going to have that one or two people. Your mom is going to be your fan. Except in my case, my mom wouldn't read my stuff. She had no interest.
So instead, you have my mom.
Right. Your mom was my first big fan. But she gets me, man. She gets me.
Yeah. She likes you.
Yeah. If I ever meet her, that'll all change, though.
Oh, I'm sure. That's why you're not allowed in the same state together. I was just sitting here thinking, doing it for the fame is the hardest way to do it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Doing it to be well known, doing it to be well respected is the hardest way to do it. Because that means you're going to have a lot of extraneous work that isn't about writing the blog. It's about promoting yourself and about getting your name out there and about getting in front of people. And people don't like the methods that go behind that in general.
See, I'm going to be more pragmatic about it and disagree.
Okay.
Because the thing is, like, there's no difference between that and saying, I want to start my own business to make money.
Right.
It's the equivalent of a profit motive. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's
no, there's not,
okay,
but it is the harder way to do it.
Well, it does. I mean, you have to be savvy at that point.
Yeah.
You really have to think about everything you're doing, and you have to work to a plan.
Yeah. And you will run up against the vast majority of people who believe that if a thing was good, they'd have already heard about it, and they don't need you to tell them you're good. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, but that comes down to how you promote yourself too.
Right.
Okay. There are ways that you can, like, I'll give an example. I don't know if I should give this example because this is like, I'm a little nervous about admitting it. The placement of the Patreon banners on my website. Okay. I have a Patreon banner at the beginning and the end of every one of my articles. Okay. And that's done for a reason. Because, some people respond at the beginning, some people respond at the end. They take action right away versus they take yada, yada, yada. But the wording of my Patreon banners is also very specifically done because it's a form of advertising that people tend to respond very well to. Okay, which is, it says something like, this blog, or you're reading this article because people like you support it. Okay, which is an energy company down in California was experimenting with this, and they found that if you call attention to what people's peers are doing, it makes them more likely to act. Now, I hesitate to admit that because if you say it the wrong way, it sounds, oh yeah, I was manipulating my audience and, and I scammed all these people, which is absolutely not what I set out to do. Okay. And I didn't even really have the profit motive behind me. In fact, I didn't want to go on Patreon to begin with. I was convinced to. I was actually shutting down my blog, and people said, let us pay you instead. But when I did make the decision to go on Patreon, I also said, well, if I'm going to go on Patreon and I'm going to have to advertise this, and I'm going to make money off of it, well, I've got to give myself every chance to succeed. And so I looked into it. I actually looked into a couple of different ways of how do people put ads together. It helped that I had taken a couple of marketing classes as my, accounting degree as part of my accounting degree. But, I just looked into it and I worded the ads that specific way. And that's what I mean by being savvy. Now, again, I'm still, that's not an admission that I'm super comfortable making. But at this point, I trust my audience to know that I'm not putting one over on them. It's like I did not set out to scam you out of your $1 a month or whatever it was, But if you have the profit motive, you'll do things like that. And then you have to balance it against your own integrity. There are things I won't do. When it came to advertising my book, I had the opportunity to put a pop-up ad on my website. Every time you access my website, a pop-up that says, hey, I got a book coming. Instead, I went with an unobtrusive banner that appears down at the bottom that you can just easily ignore. I knew I had to have something because people got to know my book's coming out, but I hate pop-ups. So I wasn't willing to do something that I hated just to get more response. Even though all the numbers are there and those pop-up ads, they work. They get click-throughs. They get more click-throughs than little unobtrusive banners. It's just a fact. But I made that choice because you have to balance out the profit motive with your own integrity. It's I won't run ads on my web. I've had a few offers for ads now, and I've had a few offers for sponsored content. And every time my response is the same. No, angry, don't do that. It's just not what I'm interested in doing. My product has to be genuine. It has to be mine. So, I mean, that's what we mean by that's what I mean by taking a more pragmatic approach and finding the balance. You can be business savvy and be honest and have integrity.
Yep.
You don't have to give up the one for the other.
Do you think it's okay in your given field, whatever it is you're choosing to write about? Do you think it's worth rehashing the same points that everybody else made just so you can have your opinion on them? There's some things that are notorious in the RPG community for coming around again and again and again.
You mean say yes and?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. All right. Do you think it's worth going over that again?
I think if you have something fresh to say, if you have something more to say than, hey, I read this, here, click this link because I agree with it, or if your entire blog post could be summed up with a link to something else, then no, I don't think it's worth doing that. But if you have a perspective to offer, it's because I think it's a mistake to chase freshness. I think it's people get really bogged down on I have this idea, but it's not original enough. And I think that that's a dangerous way to censor yourself, because a lot of things that you might not think are original to someone. Mm-hmm. And you might be censoring a take that you might have to offer that you might put a unique spin on. But if you're just repeating something that you have seen somewhere else, then no, I don't think it's worth it to do that. If you're going to expand, it's the concept of what do they call it? Transformative work.
Mm-hmm.
If you have something to say that transforms the viewpoint that you're talking about in some way, either to clarify it or to build on it or to disagree with it or to make a conditional out of it. Like, yeah, no, say yes and is usually good advice, but here's some situations where you shouldn't. Then I think it is worth starting by not assuming that people know what you're talking about and say, well, let me explain yes and first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's this belief that you should, never say no to the players. You always want to say yes. And also you want to build on top of that by saying, and then this. And that's an idea that comes from improvisational theater. And while I think it's generally good advice, then here's my opinion. It's sort of like you establish the context and then you have something else to say. If you never get past establishing the context, then there's no point in writing about it. But if you have something to say about it, then by all means say it. I'm not going to say something is pointless just because, you may not be the first person saying it.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if you're going to do this, make it your own.
Yes.
Don't just parrot. Okay. That's fine. That sounds good. I like that.
Well, I mean, you'll never stand out that way.
Right.
If you're just repeating the same thing as 5 other blogs, then people are just going to choose which blog to read at random. Or they're going to stick with the blog they've already been reading. If your blog says something that they can't find on those 4 other blogs, then people are going to stick around and read yours. Or read yours too. So yeah, make it your own, I guess.
Make it your own.
I didn't need to unclarify by making it more complicated.
No, that's fine. That's fine. you made it your own.
By tripling the word count. Yep, that's about right.
That sounds right. Sounds right to me. The thing, I feel like at this point, though, on certain topics, at least within the RPG community, have been done to death. Right? And there's no real value in going through and rehashing them all just for your audience.
Right.
Granted, yes, like you were saying, there are occasions where somebody is new in general and maybe doesn't know what you're talking about. But I don't think, unless you're writing specifically for the new guy, the beginner, then certainly recover the topics and explain what the topic is and that kind of stuff. But I don't think there's a lot to be gained with a more mature audience. Is that the word I want? An audience that is more mature in whatever your topic is. Seasoned in the topic. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
A seasoned audience. I don't think there's a lot of point in rehashing things they will have had the opportunity to read 400 or 500 times before.
Yeah, and that's like you can assume that anybody who is reading a blog on gaming reads numerous blogs on gaming.
Yeah, I just but this is all up to you, of course, in terms of what your topic is going to be and how you're going to approach it and what your voice is on that topic, etc., 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 like we were saying before. You just want to kind of be aware that a lot of things have been done already. I would not start a blog just so I could have my own place to talk about what I think of encumbrance rules. I wouldn't bother with that. That would not be something that the majority of people will not have heard or will still be interested in at this point. It's done. Similarly, there are other topics where that would apply as well, but I'm not going to get into that right now because everybody's heard it. The other thing I want to cover real quickly in terms of this, of continuing to answer this question in a thorough and forthright manner.
Until it is thoroughly dead.
Yes. So it never has to be asked again. Is that if it's not working, don't feel bad about shutting it down. If it turns out that this is not your thing, or the idea was wrong, or whatever, or you didn't execute it the way you had hoped you would, or it's not meeting the goals you set for it, turn it off. Nobody's going to fault you for that.
Right.
If you're not happy doing it, then don't feel like you have to keep doing it. I have had no fewer than, let me think here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, possibly 7 different podcasts over the course of the years. I shut a bunch down because they just weren't working out the way I wanted them to work out.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't doing what I expected them to do. So yeah, and you know, if you think you can do it better in a different way or whatever, go do that. That's perfectly acceptable.
Yep.
Until you find something that hits and that hits all the things you want it to hit and does what you want it to do in the way you want it to do it, feel free to restart every single time. Don't get discouraged. Unless you absolutely determine that blogging is just not a thing you can do, then try something new. I think that's the biggest thing. People get stuck and they think that now that they've committed to writing a blog, that they're really committed to writing a blog and they can't possibly get out of it. And it's gonna like take over their lives and absolutely ruin them because they have to keep doing this every single time and la 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 la. Don't fall into that. You can turn it off whenever you want. Because what happens is when you're displeased with what you're producing for whatever reason, it's going to get worse. Because you're just not going to want to do it.
Well,
there are certain circumstances which may change your mind.
well, no, because here's the thing, and I don't disagree.
Okay.
That you should be willing to shut it down if it's not working. There's also the day that it gets hard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that happens. Okay. Like, especially if you commit yourself to like a regular, you know, if you go with the consistency advice, and it's like every Wednesday, I'm going to put out something. There's going to be the day where you've got to write that article or, you know, that blog entry, and you're not going to want to do it. And it's going to be hard. And if you're too quick to shut it down, you know, you might take what is a temporary difficulty and misread it as a disaster.
Yeah. I think there's a huge difference between something which is difficult and something which just is not working.
Right.
Okay. Don't get the too confused.
Yeah, and honestly, telling the difference between the two is an expert skill in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but to some extent, you have to be willing to push yourself a little bit to push through some of the hardness, some of the difficulties. And there are going to be like you can write a post and it just doesn't work, and a lot of people hate it and tell you so because it's the internet. They'll tell you so. You know, you'll get no comments on anything, and then you write the one thing that hits people the wrong way, and then suddenly you've got commenters. Oh boy, howdy do you? And that'll be the day where you question everything about what you're doing. It's like I obviously can't do this. Everybody hates it. And the success is recognizing that that's not the end and pushing through it. If it's not really the end. Now, if week on week on week, all the feedback you're getting is saying you can't do this, this is terrible, then yeah, then it's not working. And then you either need to change something or give it up. But you just have to be careful not to give up too quick. It's very easy to give up. Giving up is the easiest and the hardest thing ever at the same time. It can be very easy to do. It can be easy to give up at the wrong time. And it can be very hard to give up when you should. You know, as a small business accountant, I saw that a lot I saw both a lot. And one of the hardest things was for people to take a business that was failing, that they had sunk a lot into, you know, because they had, built their life and their future and their dreams around it. And they had to realize that it wasn't working. And hopefully what you're putting into your blogging isn't nearly as much as that. But you're still going to be emotionally invested.
Yeah, don't overinvest too soon.
Yeah. And honestly, maybe, you know what? If I can take a moment to just invalidate absolutely everything we have said for the last hour or so, maybe don't think about any of this.
Right.
Maybe just start writing your blog and see what happens.
Just do it.
You know?
That's the best advice, really, is just do it. Yeah.
I'll say again, that's literally what I did. I just started writing. I had an idea. I wrote it to see what would happen. And it worked. I got lucky. And then when it started to work, then I seized on it. But, you know, there are things I wish I knew going in. But I think that if I had known them, things might not have worked out the way they did. You know, you might overthink things. Overthinking is a problem. You know, so maybe just ignore everything we've said, start writing and see what happens.
Yeah. My method is not to follow anybody's rules. Not even my own sometimes. I mean, I just, you know, if I think it's interesting enough to me, I'll just do it. It'll be, I'll write it down or record it or whatever. And I'll just do it to do it and find out whether it's actually the thing I think it is or not. If it turns out it's not, close down. If it turns out it is, maybe keep going on it.
In the end, starting a blog is not a huge investment.
No, it's there's a zero investment. Yeah.
Well, except you do put in time.
Yeah.
And there is value in that. It's time that you're not spending playing video games or sleeping or doing something else you'd rather do. You know,
talking to chickens.
Yep, exactly. Talking to chickens?
Yeah. They're interesting conversationalists.
Are they really?
Yeah. Yeah. Many of them are henpecked.
I really walked into that one. Hey.
Anyhow, gosh, I hope that answered your question. What made you sad this week, sir?
Did you see this thing? It was you know about the Sage Advice feed, right? Where people can, it just compiles the answers that TSR, oh my gosh, Wizards of the Coast officially gives to rules questions on social media. And man, did Jeremy Crawford walk into sort of a contradiction. He walked into a problem.
Okay, he found a problem and he grabbed it with both hands and made it a bigger problem.
Yeah. The original question was this. Does Detect Magic, the spell Detect Magic in 5th edition, reveal golems or other constructs? Okay.
My tendency is to say yes.
Yeah, see, okay. You would be, according to Mr. Crawford, wrong.
Well, thank God I don't play at his table then.
I understand why. From a mechanical perspective, they do not want Detect Magic to overlap with spells and abilities that detect living creatures or detect creatures. It shouldn't be used for that purpose. It's specifically used to find magic items and spells and magical traps. Okay, active spells, magical traps, and stuff. So from a mechanical perspective, I understand why that answer is what it is. Okay, but it sort of leads to some problems because then other people started the conversation and Sage Advice did not grab all of the commentary. Okay. But people started to point out, so animation magic is not considered to be an ongoing effect? What is the force that drives the golem's movements if it's not magic? And Crawford had to come back and say, D&D has many instances of instantaneous magic that causes wonders. The magic vanishes, but the wondrous thing remains. For example, magic heals a wound, and the wound doesn't reopen. So then, magic gives the golem life, and that life doesn't have a duration. So then,
it sounds a lot like he's just contradicted himself,
right?
Yeah.
Well, someone else picked that up because then the question was, using that logic, wouldn't Detect Magic not detect magic items?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. And this little discussion continued.
Yeah.
And there were numerous responses, and sage advice did not grab them all. But the problem is that there's no underlying logic. The spell the spell does exactly what the spell says the spell does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not based on the logic of what is and is not magical or whatever, because D&D doesn't define magic or what magic is or how it works or whatever. And normally I make fun of people for even asking wizards these questions. It's like, just figure it out yourself. But in this particular case, D&D has not tried to define what is and is not magical in any way, except that there are things that are magic that exists, you know? And so there is no underlying logic that a GM can use to answer this in a way that creates a consistent world. And Jeremy Crawford stepped right in it because he tried to give the mechanical answer with a in-world explanation that then broke every other in-world explanation.
Right. So, okay, let me ask you a question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Using Mr. Crawford's explanations.
Yes.
And only Mr. Crawford's explanations.
Along with what it actually says in the rule book, I assume.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Does a deck of many things detect as magic?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Because it is a magic item.
All right.
And the Dungeon Master's Guide explicitly states magic items are detected by the detect magic spell.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that.
I now, by the way, have my law library handy because I know you're going to make this hard.
Does a whose tent is that? Is that starts with an L, I think.
Leoman's.
Yeah, there you go. Leoman's magical shelter thingy.
Right.
Is that magic? Is that detect as magic?
Well, Leoman's shelter?
Yeah.
Leoman's tiny hut? Leoman's.
There you go. Any of those.
Leoman's secret chest, Leoman's tiny hut. Yes, sir. Those are ongoing spells with a... Oh, wait. Hold on. Leoman's tiny hut detects as magical.
Okay.
Because it is an active spell effect with a duration.
Aha.
Leoman's secret chest is an instantaneous effect.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have a duration. It merely displaces the chest to the ethereal plane. And therefore, no, it does not detect as magical. It is not an ongoing magical effect.
Okay.
According to Mr. Crawford.
According to Mr. Crawford. Fine.
Yes. If we assume him to be correct.
Okay. That's fair.
Right. Go ahead.
Does a troll detect as magical?
No, sir.
Why?
Unless the troll is under the influence of a magical spell. For example, you would detect a troll if it had mage armor on it because you would detect the mage armor spell.
Okay. Does a dragon detect as magical?
Again, no, not unless it is the subject of an ongoing spell. By the way, I would like to point out many of these questions were thrown at Crawford in the thread. And it does detect spell scrolls, but not spell books.
Okay. All right. Spell scrolls, but not spell books. That's weirdness.
Spell scrolls are magical items. They actually store the magic that they unleash, and spell books do not. They're simply instruction manuals.
Well, then a healing potion, an unused healing potion,
detects as magic. It's a magic item.
Uh-huh.
QED. Sorry, we did that one already. Objection asked and answered.
but well, now that's not.
They are magic items. Magic items are explicitly stated as detected by the detect magic spell.
Okay. All right.
Is there a prize for this? I just have to ask.
No, I'm just trying to cover the cases here. I'm not. So are there any creatures that would detect as magical?
No. Detect magic will not detect a creature.
Even ones that are clearly summoned by magic and have only a magical existence.
That's a good question. Hold on a second. A magical existence is not enough to detect magic, according to Mr. Crawford. Mm-hmm. But one that is summoned... Let me... I have to consult the book here on the monster. What did they call them now? What is monster summoning?
I don't recall.
Oh man, there's too many spells. Wizard, find familiar. That's an interesting question. Would a wizard's familiar be detected as magical? I can ask that one too. Did we lose all the monster summoning spells?
I don't know. Did we? I haven't had to summon a monster yet.
Conjure animals. Let's do that one.
Okay.
Here we go. Conjure elemental, conjure celestial, conjure animal. Yes. Those would be detected because there is a duration on the spell, so you would detect the active spell.
Okay.
Concentration up to 1 hour. Find familiar, my guess is no, because I think it's instantaneous. Once the familiar comes, it's there forever. Yeah, it's instantaneous. So a familiar is not magical. Mm-hmm. However, if you conjure an animal, it is.
Okay.
If you pull a rabbit out of your hat as a wizard, it does not detect as magical, but as a druid, it does. Just keep that rule of thumb.
Okay, all right. A werewolf.
No.
In either form?
Shape change. Its shape change ability is not a spell.
Okay. Is it? What's it listed as, sir?
What?
What's it listed as? Its shape change ability. Just an ability?
Yeah. I believe actually it's a trait. I'm looking now. I've got the book out. It's hard to find things in these books, okay? All of the indexing is really tiny. Yeah. I can't even see what page number I'm on.
I know.
H-A-J-K-L.
Life is hard.
Also, I can't remember the alphabet.
Okay.
Like Canthro. Shape changer. It's a trait.
Just a trait. Okay.
Yep. So it's not an ongoing spell effect.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Vampires.
Do not.
Vampires in bat form.
Do not. Wait. Ooh, that's a good question. Are vampires spellcasters? I don't think they are in this edition. This would be easy if I didn't have 4 different editions or 5 different editions of rules in my head at this point. Vampire. I'm guessing no. No, it's shape changer. It's a trait.
Okay, all right.
These are all traits.
They're all traits. Okay.
I mean, again, this is based on extending Crawford's own logic out.
Right. Okay. There's a whole bunch of different golems, but I don't know that going through them would be beneficial at all.
No, and because it's just going to be the same answer again and again and again.
Jellies and things they're just creatures. Everything's just a creature. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's ultimately the point. The point is they do not want detect magic to detect creatures. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really what he wanted to say. Why
doesn't he just say that then? Why has he got to mess it all around?
Because again, there's not an underlying logic for him to draw on.
And at least this is sage advice.
And what's really interesting though is that there is an argument that he's wrong anyway. Mm-hmm. By a strict reading of detect magic, because if you sense magic in this way, you can use your action to see a faint aura around any visible creature or object in the area that bears magic, and you learn its school of magic, if any.
Wait a minute. What?
Yeah.
Do wizards detect as magical?
No, sir. Not unless they're subject to an ongoing spell.
That's so then when
I mean, this is really what it is. It's an exceptions-based rule. It only works when it works. It's not it works unless it doesn't. Okay, and here's what Detect Magic detects. Ongoing spells and magic items. Anything that is not subject to an ongoing spell or a magic item by the ruling of Crawford v. Kirk Lindholm of Twitter. Or wait, no, that wasn't the... Yeah, it was. It was Kirk Lindholm 1 v. D&D. And based on that ruling, based on the precedent set there, unless it's only going to detect magic items and ongoing spell effects. That is, spells with a duration.
Okay.
And all of his further clarifications is him stammering and stuttering around all of the other obviously magical things that can't be detected and trying to explain why.
The thing I fear is the eventual book that collects all the sage advice into one volume and is then sold to the player base.
I would pay for that just because it would be so comedic. I love reading the sage advice stuff. Because there's so many of these things where they blunder into traps. Mm-hmm. Okay, where Crawford will say something, he'll give a ruling that leads to some other bit of bizarre logic. You know?
Mm-hmm. All right. One further question.
Sure.
Would the area surrounding the lair of a dragon, if not the lair itself, detect as magical?
No.
Why not?
What's the ongoing presence of magic there?
Well, all of those dragony effects for, all the what do they call them? The lair effects and whatnot.
Those aren't spells. They're not magical.
They're not magical.
No. It's completely natural. It's completely normal.
No, it isn't.
It's totally normal.
No, it's not. Can't possibly be totally normal.
Listen, if you argue the other way, then every wound that you have ever had healed will detect as magical forever. Because he clearly cannot imagine a world where magical healing actually just heals the wound.
Look. The lair effects are only active for as long as the creature is alive. The creature whose lair it is alive. Mm-hmm. Right. It has a duration.
Yeah.
That duration is the life of the creature.
Right. It's not a spell.
Okay. All right. Fine.
I don't know what to tell you. I didn't do this.
Don't bring this garbage to my game. That's all I'm saying. Don't bring it to my game. You're going to be in trouble. Fine. I need to think about this more.
Yeah, well, again, though, what you have the point is that he doesn't care. Like D&D and Crawford specifically do not care about the logic in the world.
Right.
He is answering a question about a game mechanic, and there he begins and ends. And any logic he tries to apply is him making an excuse for the game mechanic, which I argue is utterly and completely backwards. I think you should start from the logic of the world. And if the logic of the world leads you to conclude that, yes, a zombie is detectable as detect magic, Mm-hmm. And honestly, all of this could have been saved if the detect magic spell said something like, it only detects inanimate magical effects or effects on inanimate objects. You know? So it will detect ongoing spells that are cast on doors to keep doors closed and traps and stuff like that. And it'll detect magical items, but it does not detect magical creatures that are inherently magical. Yeah, I mean, because you could even make an argument, and I sort of get where he's coming from here. If you want to argue that the presence of any magic is going to trigger this spell, then you could argue that there is a certain level of background magic in that universe because, I mean, the magical energy exists. You know, it's like radiation. And so every time you turn on the detect magic spell, you know, you're going to get a certain amount of background radiation, magic.
That's the solution to the whole thing right there.
What?
This background magic. Okay? The background magic is actually what keeps the golem going. And detect magic only detects things that rise above that background level.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to explain it. Or... And here's the wacky alternative. It's like, what's the problem if detect magic does detect golems?
Well, then everybody knows
what are you
where
so
all the
worried
big
about?
bad
Ruining
things
the
are.
surprise?
Yeah.
I think, quite frankly, if the players are smart enough to expend a spell to see if there's a magical creature around, then they deserve to, you know, have ruined the surprise. That's called reconnaissance.
Yeah.
We're supposed to reward that kind of behavior. You know?
Mm-hmm. You know what I want to see happen?
Mm-hmm.
I want somebody to wait about a week or so and then throw this exact same question at Mike Merles. And see what happens. I think that would be brilliant.
Oh,
and
man.
until that happens, we are out of time.